it's always so cool to see classic Doctor Who on the big screen like that. It's super great. Welcome to the official BritBox Classic Doctor Who panel. My name is Kyle Anderson. I'm the associate editor of Nerdist.com, and I welcome all of you to the Indigo Ballroom. So this panel is all about classic Doctor Who, and this is actually the first San Diego Comic-Con panel specifically about classic Doctor Who in several decades. Probably since there was a new show. But this is all in celebration of BritBox having the largest collection of classic Doctor Who on a subscription video service. So I'd like to bring out three people who know the classic series much better than I do because they were in it. And we're going to be able to talk to them and everything. So first of all, you know him as the Fifth Doctor, Mr. Peter Davison.
You see the way I bounded out there?
That was, yeah. That was
I'm just trying to set a precedent.
Up next, you know her as the Seventh Doctor's fantastic companion, Ace, Sophie Aldred. And last but in no way least, the Sixth Doctor himself, Mr. Colin Baker. Well, I guess first question I want to ask is, Doctor Who's kind of remained popular since it went off the air in 1989, but have you guys seen an upsurgence in popularity in your own times with younger audiences since the new series started?
Oh, very definitely, yes. I mean, there's a whole new range of younger fans who come and see us. I'm always slightly worried in case they don't actually recognize us. I'm rather worried that when they watched us on the old episodes, they think, well, they're going to look exactly like that. And then, of course, we don't quite. But no, it's very nice to see the younger viewers going back to find the classic Doctors.
I mean, the new series has certainly changed the game in a lot of ways, and I think I would really like to hear what all of you have to say about the casting of Jodie Whittaker as the 13th Doctor.
I think it's brilliant. For years I've been coming to these events and people have asked me that question, and I've said, yes, why not? I'm in touch with my feminine side. And some would say perhaps I was the first female Doctor. Well, so judging by the clothes, anyway. No, I've never really understood why 12 times this will have happened, and now is the first time that the Doctor has come back to us in a different gender. I mean, everything else has changed, their behaviour, their looks, their age. So it's time we had some more fundamental changes. And I've got 4 daughters, and I want them to have a Doctor that they can aspire to. Even though they're a little too old, I probably won't watch it. Nonetheless, I think, you know, for years boys have had their hero, so it's the girls' turn. And I've been coming to conventions and asking people what they thought. I've been surprised that very often it's the girls who don't think it should be a member of their own sex. I think that's because they want lots more of David Tennant, really. They want the good-looking ones. So
I think it's taken, actually, but never mind.
But I wish her well, and I say to those who doubt, who are worried about a female Doctor, give her a chance. I think she'll surprise you.
are bound to get upset with any change of doctor. I remember when John Pertwee, who was my first doctor, regenerated into Tom Baker, and we were going for a holiday on the coast, and my mum was reading the paper in the car, and she said, Doctor Who's going to be played by somebody else. It's going to be Tom Baker now. And I was absolutely furious. I thought, how can anybody ever possibly be the Doctor other than John Pertwee? I thought, Tom Baker, who's that? He's no good. He'll be rubbish.
Yeah, I'm sure she will be wonderful. I mean, it is a big step. It is a major change. And it will take some of the fans time to adjust, and I think it's important that whatever they say now, whether they say things like "I'm never going to watch it again," I think we have to be understanding about their concerns and not just dismiss them out of hand, and just encourage them really to when she actually appears on screen, which I suppose will be the end of the Christmas special, but in reality it'll be when her season proper starts, to view it with an open mind. And she's a fantastic actress. I'm sure she'll make a great job of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think any kind of backlash like that, like you were saying, Sophie, it just makes me laugh because when Chris Eccleston was cast, they're like, he's a Northern Doctor, that can't happen. And like, David Tennant was too handsome, and Matt Smith was too young, and Peter Capaldi's too old.
I was too young, Peter Capaldi was too old. I mean, how could we get it right?
It's always something. It's not just the Doctors that have changed with the times, the companions have also changed with the times. Sophie as Ace, in many ways, yes, was sort of the prototype for the modern companion in a lot of ways. Did you, at the time, notice that you were getting a lot more to do than a lot of the other companions?
Yeah, I mean, when I first got the script, when I first got the part, I thought this is a bit strange, because Doctor Who companions, don't they just run around quarries and twist their ankles along? Because they're wearing high heels, and don't they just scream? And I thought, I'm not right for this part. I'm not right for that, because I was a bit of a tomboy myself. I rode a motorbike and stuff like that, played football and cricket. And then I got the first script and I thought, oh, this is a bit different. And so it continued. And Sylvester was very concerned that I would, he had this idea, I remember, we were standing in the schoolroom where we were filming Remembrance of the Daleks, and they were just setting up a big shot. And we were just kind of talking, and he said, do you know what, I think it would be a really good idea for my doctor to be teaching Ace about the universe, and taking her around the universe, and she confronts her fears and things like that. And I said, oh yeah, that sounds great, that sounds really good. What I didn't realise was it was a very cunning way of him shoving all his difficult lines onto me. So instead of him saying, yes, Ace, it's the... he'd say, Ace, what's this? And I'd have to say the lines. So,
he's a lazy bugger.
Speaking of the Daleks, you each got to fight against the Daleks, which I think is the hallmark of Doctor Who. Were the Daleks, when you got to face off against the Daleks, did that feel like, oh, this is really Doctor Who now?
Yeah, it was a close call in my case, because Terry Nation didn't want to allow a Dalek story that wasn't written by him, and he took a bit of persuading. Eventually he relented, I'm very glad he did. We had Resurrection of the Daleks, which I'm reliably told had a higher body count than Terminator. I suppose that's a good thing.
Yes.
And I did have one of my favourite moments playing Doctor Who. I got to push a Dalek out of a window.
Yeah.
And it exploded on the ground. That was a fantastic feeling. And it was the one thing that hit home with my young children, who kept going around for weeks after saying, Daddy pushed the Dalek out the window.
Yeah, anyone else? Daleks?
yeah, well, Daleks, it was my first story as the companion. Remembrance of the Daleks.
And you got to hit him with a bat.
And I the Dalek, well, the Daleks also went up the stairs in that story for the first time. And I remember thinking that was really cool. Although in reality, watching it happen, it wasn't quite so cool. It was actually a set of stairs in the studio, and then there was a big kind of wooden pole that was fixed onto the Dalek, and some tracks running up the side of the stairs, and these props guys go up the stairs. So yeah, it wasn't quite as magic as it looked. But
I think as actors we dread a Dalek story, which we did back in the day. Now it's all done with people going with some keyboards. The Daleks do everything. But back then, you learned more swear words when the Dalek fell over, or all the nuts and bolts inside the Dalek were jabbing into various parts of the operator's anatomy. So you hear muffled curses. And if there was anything larger than a grain of salt on the floor, the casters would wedge and it would fall over. So running away from a Dalek, which you saw us do sometimes, was one of the most difficult things to pretend to do. Because in fact, you could stop and have a fag break. Sorry, not fag break, cigarette break. Sorry, two nations divided by a common language. So they're the least scary things you could ever hope to see, except at the end of filming that episode, I came back to my dressing room and I took a shortcut across the empty studio. So there was only the emergency lighting on, it was quite dark. And there was one Dalek still in the middle of the floor, an empty set with one Dalek in it. And as I walked past it, the eye stalk followed me. And I had a moment that I think all viewers are supposed to have, of sheer panic. For about 2 seconds until I realised that the guy inside it was oiling it. Because it had been squeaking all day. So it goes to show that whatever the Dalek may represent, it can still be scary.
We definitely want to give fans a chance to ask questions, so if you guys want to start lining up. Is there anybody here, by the way, I should have asked at the beginning, who hasn't seen much or any classic Doctor Who? Is there anybody here? Yeah, there's a few people, that's great. Thanks for coming.
Well, you can now.
Yeah. Which leads me to my next question. Is there a story that you like to point people to who've never seen any of your Doctor, or maybe it's just a favorite one that you like people to ask you about?
Start at the beginning.
What about your series? What's your favourite from the ones you did?
My favourite, well, I suppose my favourite, excuse me. Ooh, turn away, Colin. Thank you. My favourite of my time would be the Two Doctors, because of working with Patrick, who was the doctor who made it possible for the rest of us. Without Patrick, we wouldn't be sitting here today, and you'll be wondering why have we come to this large, empty room. Because he was such a genius actor that he did the impossible thing and made a programme which had lost its principal actor into something you still wanted to watch. Nobody's ever explained yet who came up with the idea. I don't know who thought of regeneration, but it was a genius idea made possible by a genius actor. And without him, that's 30 odd years of the best television you could ever watch, gone forever. And all the classic stuff you can see on BritBox, by the way.
Yep. Anyone else? Favorite stories of their own?
Well, I had two favourites for a long time. Of my seasons, it was Earthshock,
Yes.
which I think was an excellent story by Eric Singwood. Then I suppose Caves of Antizani was pretty good. It kind of lost its way in the last 30 seconds, really. But apart from that,
Powerful ending.
Well, I would point people to Remembrance of the Daleks, which is my first story as the companion. But also, I've particular favourite, which is called The Curse of Fenric. It's set in the Second World War, and it's vampires and Norse mythology, and you get to hear a lot about Ace's story. They did a lot to me then, blew me up. I had to jump into lull with COVID, April, nearly got hypothermia, and yeah, so a lot happened to me in that story, but it's a really good writing. Again, I think it's the writing, isn't it, that makes a really good story. Yeah.
Always.
I agree. For those of you who don't know, I host a podcast called Doctor Who, The Writer's Room, all about the writing of classic Doctor Who, so I agree with Sophie entirely. Yeah, so let's go out to questions. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Hi, my name's Travis, and the first thing I want to do is thank Colin Baker, because some 30 years ago, when I was in high school at a convention in Columbus, Georgia, I met you and Anthony Ainley. And I remember those two encounters because you were phenomenally nice to the people that came to your table. And Anthony Ainley wasn't so much. I want to thank you, man to man.
It must have been a bad day for him.
He wasn't really into other people. But I want to thank you, man to man, for being a great person and addressing your fans with great respect.
Thank you. Did you ever meet Peter?
I have not, but you're literally the only doctor
he's
on
nice
this
to me.
face to face.
He's ever so nice.
So my question is, you said it's good to have finally have a female doctor as a good representation, certainly for your daughters. In the past few regenerations, it has been brought up when we're going to have a black doctor or an Indian doctor, which are pretty well represented in Great Britain.
Yep.
I would like to get anyone's opinion on why it's better or why it's so great in the here and now to have another Caucasian person, be it male or female, versus another minority representation.
I would entirely agree with you. And that should have happened some time ago as well. I suppose if they'd gone changed gender and racial type at the same time, that might have been too brave for them. So all I'd say is watch the next regeneration. Because you're quite right. There's been a lot of speculation that, someone like, what's his name, the brilliant actor who's in Thor.
Idris Elba?
Yeah, would make a brilliant doctor, and he would. There's hundreds of black and Asian actors I think there's hundreds of actors, thousands of actors, who could pick up the mantle of Doctor Who and be extremely good. And you're quite right. The white male dominance of the role has not, to my mind, been anything other than slightly timid. But now they've broken the bravery barrier, I'd say watch that space, because it would be entirely right for you, sir, if you're an actor, to be playing Doctor Who.
Does anybody else want to weigh in on that?
Sorry?
Hey, who's moderating here?
Yeah.
I think Stephen Moffat's here this weekend. I know he's a bit late. Go and have a word. He'd like that.
He might sneakily be here, I suppose.
Are you?
Yeah, hi.
First I wanted to say Ace was always my favorite companion. I really looked up to her growing up. I was always such a tomboy that I thought she was the coolest ever, basically. So seeing you here, kind of freaked out.
Thank you.
But I just wanted a simple question. What did you find was like the hardest moment for you to act as your character? Like, what did you find was like a really difficult moment to like convey the feelings your character was having or something?
Do you know, that's got me thinking, because I don't think I did find it hard to play Ace. She just seemed to be a natural fit for, I mean, I didn't have a background like Ace, and I wasn't like Ace, but somehow I just really kind of understood her, and I think the thing was that the writing was so good for Ace, and the concept of the character, that there was really never anything that was written that I did find difficult to do. I love doing all my own stunts. When I was just thinking, there was a moment there in the trailer where you saw a Cyberman falling from a great height onto the ground. And I was just thinking earlier, I was actually up there on this huge high gantry, about 100 foot in the air, with no railings or anything, and had to duck down at one point and look down, and there was nothing between me and this drop. And I thought, you couldn't actually do that now in TV or film. You couldn't ask an actor to take that risk. And there are lots of things that I did which would be far too risky to do now. But we didn't think about it in those days. We were just having a fantastic time. And so they said, you know, jump in this river or...
You're expendable.
Yeah.
Break out another companion.
Get in this dodgy water tank which might break, or all sorts of things I did.
Work with Sylvester.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I just loved every moment. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
My question, well, first of all, can I just say my first crush was on Peter. But not as the Doctor, as Tristan in All Creatures Great and Small. And then I loved you with the Doctor, of course. My question is for you, Peter, because obviously for you, Doctor Who's been quite a family business, obviously, with Georgia and David. And Georgia did the Doctor's daughter, Jenny. Do you think we'll ever see Jenny again?
Well, you'll hear Jenny again because she's doing some Big Finish stories. I don't think I'm giving anything away because I think the news was leaked inadvertently by someone else and they've now announced it. Yes, she's doing some audio adventures for Big Finish. I would love her to have come back. I mean, it has been my answer for the last last few months when asked about the possibility of a female Doctor. I was desperately trying to plug my daughter, saying there is a female Time Lord. Her name is Jenny, but I didn't quite pull that off. But yeah, no, she will be. I don't know if she'll ever come back in the series. Originally, you know, it's quite interesting that Jenny's character was meant to die at the end of that story, and it was. I think I'm right in saying, I hope he's not here, Stephen Moffat, who said, no, don't kill her off. Let her fly off at the end of the episode. So I thought she was well in line for a spin-off series. It's not too late.
Maybe it could be Ace and Jenny.
Yes.
Yes. Come on.
I have to say, one of my daughters said to me, when do I get to meet Matt Smith? I blame you for that.
It was nothing to do with me, it was fate.
Yes, sir.
Hi. First off, I do want to say it's amazing to be in the same room as Peter Davison, who was always my favorite Doctor, and I was always picked on for not picking Don Baker in my house.
Thank you.
I know, I was in a minority of that. What I wanted to ask, specifically for the two doctors here, if you ever had a chance for your doctor to come back and experience an other doctor's story that you've seen or one you grew up with, what would be one you'd like to see your doctor have experienced?
Which Doctor Who story that there's been in the modern series?
Or a classic.
Oh, I see, or classic. That's interesting. I mean, my favourite story after Kate of Androzani was, I think, The Empty Child. I just thought it was a wonderful story. So I suppose I'd probably choose that. I mean, I think Chris Eccleston had some wonderful stories in that first season. I think, obviously, Russell T Davies had been soaking them up and just let that imagination fly in that first season. So yeah, that would be mine.
And you asked me as well, and I would say the same. Empty Child and Dr. Dances. A couple of reasons. One, I'm a school governor at home, and I went into the school the day after by chance, and all the children at the playground were going around pretending to have gas masks on and saying, "Are you my mummy?" And I knew then that Doctor Who was back, because we've got the children terrified and wanting to get rid of that through play, which is what all good storytelling is about. And secondly, because for the only time ever when I was watching Doctor Who, anybody's, I got a shiver down my spine when Eccleston said, "Everybody lives." At the end. If Doctor Who is about anything, it's about his desire that that should be the case.
Can I tell my empty child story?
Yeah, please do.
So,
I should actually say that Stephen Moffat wrote Empty Child, and I should say that. He did, didn't he? Am I right in saying that?
He wrote them, yeah.
Yeah.
Steve Moffat wrote them.
Yeah, Stephen Moffat wrote Empty Child.
just in case he's here.
Hi, Stephen.
It's gotta be here somewhere. Yeah, hi.
I didn't tell my empty child story.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Please
That was
don't
a joke,
tell
my
my
bad.
empty child story.
Go on, sir.
Please tell me about the
Okay.
child story.
It'll be a real anticlimax now. So, we recorded the empty child because we put the boys to bed because they were quite little, and then my husband and I snuck down and watched it. And it was all dark, and it was completely dark in the house, and we were watching the empty child, and it was blooming scary. And then all of a sudden I heard a noise from upstairs, and my husband said, "Oh, you go, he'll want you." So I came out of our living room door, looked up the stairs, and silhouetted against the window was my younger son. And just this little silhouette of a little boy. And he said, "Mummy!"
And you said, "I'm not your mummy."
And I actually felt really scared.
That's the power of the show. It can make you afraid of your own child. Yeah, hi.
Okay, so you both had hard regenerations. Which one do you think was worse?
But like difficult,
Difficult. Which one was worse?
You mean,
well, that's more painful.
when,
I turned into Colin Baker, so that's
so that was the best. So it's your regeneration into you. That was the worst.
No, I had the worst because no one was really noticing me, because Nicola Bryant was leaning over me in a very low-cut outfit. So I was acting my heart out, and none of you noticed.
But now with BritBox, they can rewatch it.
Now they can rewatch that bit, yes.
Well, yes. Well, I only had one on screen because I wasn't there for the second one. Peter turning to me was the one I did, and I thought that was a very good end to a day. And I enjoyed it a lot. I had to wait around for hours while they sorted out the fact they hadn't got time to film the death of the magma monster.
That's right. Yeah.
And I remember seeing, if I'm correct, the guy who made it in tears because he'd spent hours making the magma monster, which was supposed to have a fight with you.
That's right. I know it had to be curtailed.
And
But,
then they
yeah.
just said, "Oh, not your day," you said. And stepped over this thing.
I'm sure I didn't say that.
That was your
Listen,
life.
you had more time than I had. When I regenerated from Tom, we literally had 3 minutes left. The studio clock was clicking around, and I had to lie down in the spot where Tom had fallen off the gantry, and then they pulled me out, put me into makeup, washed my hair, put the makeup on, sat down, and then John Nathan Turner said, "Just sit up, just sit up!" And so when I sat up, it wasn't really acting, it was just like, what the hell is going on? What have I got myself into? And it worked.
Because the lights would just turn off, right, at the end of the day?
And depending on who was being difficult at the time, either the lights would turn off or they turn what they call the VT machines off. And that would be the end of recording.
I've always maintained that Sylvester McCoy was never actually a genuine doctor, because I was not there at the regeneration. And Sylvester McCoy, wriggling around in my costume, is not a doctor mate, in my opinion. So he was the first in a long line of apostate doctors, like the popes of the Middle Ages who weren't really popes. So I was the last, and I still am the doctor then. And there's a new line of pretend doctors that took over. So she is in fact the 7th.
All right.
Thank you, young
Thank you very
lady.
much. Yes, sir.
You were speaking about how when a new doctor steps into an old doctor's shoes, there's sometimes a backlash, whether it's a woman or a man. But did either of you, Peter or Colin, feel any sense of backlash when you first took the role? You were talking about Tom Baker replacing the third doctor and so on. So just did you feel that yourself?
Oh yeah, well I mean there was certainly a he's too young for the part feeling when I took over, I think. It was also, when I came over to the US, the first convention I did over here, a lot of people over here had only ever seen Tom Baker, and so they didn't really quite understand what a regeneration was in those days. So, as I say, they just thought, it's that bloke from the Vet series, what the heck is he doing in Doctor Who? So yeah, there is. I mean, I think this is a bigger step, if you like, so there's going to be a more apparent backlash, but yeah, I mean, every change is difficult. There are many people who found it difficult when Matt Smith took over from David. So I think there's always going to be an adjustment, a period of adjustment.
I was very lucky because the viewers were distracted by my costume. and they didn't actually notice me much. All their bile was directed at the ludicrous costume that I was asked to wear. The only advantage of which was that I was on the inside looking out. The rest of you had to look at it. Yeah, as Peter said, there was always a backlash, and he had his adoring millions of viewers who mourned the passing of the handsome young doctor and found they would have to look at me, but as I say, the costume took most of the brunt.
Colin, did you ever happen by a mirror and just go, oh? Like you're just having a great day, and then all of a sudden, oh, jeez.
But it was a reflection of the age in which it was made. The 80s was an age of appalling taste. and that costume was part of it. The only good thing now is that the little models, they sell more of mine than any of the others, because the kids who buy them like the colours. Result at last. And I get 0.00001 of a penny for every 1,000 sold.
Talking of which, I think we got your costume.
Hey, good looking. Hey, good looking. What's wonderful taste you have.
Thank you. My question is kind of the opposite of one that was asked a few people back. Are there any of your episodes that you would like to see a new doctor perform?
That's interesting.
Hypothetically.
Wow. Ooh. Actually, one could say, yeah, it'd be good to see Peter, what's that your name?
That's my name. Peter Davison, yeah.
David
yeah.
Tennant.
Here.
See David with one or two of the scripts that I had. I'd take a smile off his face.
I'd like to see them try time flight. Someone try time flight again, but do it with some money in the budget this time.
And Sophie, is there any companions that you would think would fit in well in the Seventh Doctor's era?
No.
Nope. Asked and answered.
Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question, then we have something cool to show you. So, yes, you young lady.
Cool is good, I'll be fast. Kind of in that same general vein, each doctor has their own sort of personality. I mean, they keep the same big hearts towards people, but do you think there are any newer episodes or different episodes where your doctor might have acted differently and perhaps even changed the outcome?
Such a good question.
That's a difficult one, isn't it?
Well, if I can bring it to Big Finish, because since we stopped doing classic Who on television, there's been a company called Big Finish, which most of you, I suspect, who have recorded 2-hour audio adventures with all of us. And in fact, I think I've had about 100 of them now. And during that time, my doctor has been enabled to make those changes. And it was quite interesting. So I did a story recently where my immediately post-regeneration doctor met my evolved doctor, if you like. I had to play against myself and found it remarkably easy to differentiate, which when you're talking to yourself would be tricky if we hadn't changed. So I took that as a measure of the fact that my doctor had actually evolved and was slightly more user-friendly.
Yeah. I suppose, I don't know if this really answers your question, but you're right, they've had that general theme about them, that they love the human race. And Peter Capaldi had a slightly different take on it. I remember talking to him about it, that he was questioning whether, exactly why was he bothering with the human race? I found it a rather interesting take on it. I don't know what my doctor would have made of that.
Your doctor had a TARDIS full of kids, so you're probably just like, get out of here.
Yeah, go out of here, get him out.
All right, well, like I said, we have something cool to show you. As probably most of you know, not all of classic Doctor Who exists still. There are currently 97 episodes that are missing, just not in the archives. Yeah, and unfortunately all of those are in the first and second Doctors from the 60s, mostly the second Doctor, unfortunately, Patrick Troughton's era. And so there's actually kind of no way to watch as they aired episodes, but there's been some reconstructions, and there's been animation. I don't know if you guys have seen the recent Power of the Daleks animation. It's great. So BritBox has spent some money, which is great, to kind of do these telesnap reconstructions using pictures that were taken off air as it was playing, and along with the audio, to give you an idea of what some of these missing stories were like. And we have a little clip from The Wheel in Space, which was a second Doctor story. So yeah, let's play it.
Jamie, we're landing. Jamie, we're landing. Oh, let's have a look at the scanner, shall we? Where's it been landed? Well, yes, we are, but I seem to have lost the pictures. Try with a bit more power, shall we? You sure you're pushing the right one? Yes, of course I have. Look at the fold indicator, will you? It's round there on the left. No, it's all right here. No movement at all? No. Well, it's funny, the air's all right, the temperature's perfectly normal. There seems to be rather a lot of metal all around us. What? Oh, you know I can't hear you when you talk to yourself. Oh, yeah, it's coming up now. Hey, now that looks all right. Boy. Oh, look at it. Oh, hey, what's that? The size of it. Well, that's funny. It's changed to night now. It's a wee bit quick, isn't it? Look, it's changed again. What's going on? Oh, dear. Those pictures aren't what's happening outside, I'm certain of that. Well, why do they keep appearing then? They're temptations. The TARDIS is trying to warn us to get away from here to somewhere more pleasant. I must have pushed the wrong switch. The red light's not flashing. Something must be wrong. What? Well, the power's overloading. The power lines are overloading. What? The fluid leaks gone. Doctor, come to here! The mercury's vaporizing! We've got to get out of here. Come on, below! Hold on to me! What are you going to do? Just hold on!
That's pretty cool, yeah. Coming later this year, BritBox will feature reconstructed episodes using audio and telesnaps not seen for decades. We don't know the exact amount yet that they're going to have, but they're going to have quite a few. What was it like? I don't know, Peter, you have said in the past that Patrick Troughton was your doctor growing up. Well, what is it like to kind of see a version of what you may have seen when you were a kid?
Very interesting to hear it, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know, how did they get the audio?
Fans, when they were younger, since there was not taping, they used to be able to, they just held audio cassettes.
You get a great sense of it. It actually works quite well. When you first look at it, it takes a bit of getting used to it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Very much get into it. Yeah, no, I just thought that, to me, as I say, I grew up watching both William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton, so, that's my doctor.
Mm. I'm really struck by how modern it sounds as well, how naturalistic the acting is, because we tend to assume, like in the 60s and early 70s, that everybody spoke like that.
Very theatrical.
Very clipped and not really real at all. But actually, particularly Fraser there, it's just very natural, isn't it?
It's a good story. I actually just listened to that story for the first time ever, like a couple of weeks ago. So it's very. I'm like, oh, I just watched that. Or listened to it. So does anybody out there have BritBox already?
Way, well done.
Congratulations. Well, guess what, folks? It's your lucky day because BritBox is offering a panel at the panel. And let me read this properly. BritBox is offering the panel audience, that's you guys, an exclusive 30-day trial starting now through Sunday at midnight. Sign up now to take advantage of the promotional code SDCC panel, and you get access to all of that Doctor Who. It's the largest anywhere on the internet.
Does that work in England?
I have no idea.
You lucky people.
It's not just classic Doctor Who, of course, but you get it's the biggest collection of classic Doctor Who available anywhere. But there's also ITV and BBC One programs from their other catalogues, worth saying, isn't it? So it's a good deal.
Yeah, it's great. If you're a fan of classic British television, as I'm sure we all are, it's such a great thing. So I thank you all for coming. That is the end of our panel, unfortunately. I would like to give another hand for Peter Davison. Another hand for Sophie Aldred.